any decent parent just sitting out there and not be willing to go in there and save a bunch of children, young children at
The
that.
opposing argument is they want to come home to raise their kids too.
Don't be a cop then.
Right.
That should be in the job description. You're putting your life on your line. You want everybody to suck because you think because you're out there serving the community and putting it all on the line. You actually have to do that. It's not just. It's looking more and more, I think, like this was just a big publicity stunt.
Now, would Elon do something like that?
No, I mean that's really out of character for him. He's generally a pretty straightforward guy, honest in his dealings. So
I mean, it's pretty epic. That's like the most epic meme of all time. Well, bye Twitter.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Or what was it? Yeah, it was 54.20. Had to have the 420 in there per share.
It's pretty baller.
Yeah, just the fact that he was able to even say it and people took him seriously. Like I say shit like all the time, like that all the time. Nobody listens to me though.
You ever play Worm, the game where you try to eat the other worms to grow larger?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I had a Nokia phone.
Yeah, Elon is like the largest fucking worm of all time. He's just eaten everything in his path for years.
Yeah. I think there's a game like that. Little guy with the monocle, buy up all the properties and nobody else can stay in your hotels.
Well, once the apocalypse starts, man, he's going to be one of the warlords. That's for sure. With a whole slew of followers with like red vests with spikes on them and shit.
Yeah, I don't know. Money has to mean something in the apocalypse, though, and I'm not sure that it will.
Oh, dude, he's got thousands of gallons of petro underground. You better believe it.
Yeah.
I've been freaking sick all week. I've had COVID for I think the 4th time now.
Really?
I'm somewhat still congested, so bear with me.
Yeah. You might have caught it from me on the last podcast.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I had it. My girlfriend Sierra's here. She had it right after me. Scott had it. I don't know what it is, but it was pretty miserable for I think everybody involved.
Yeah, my blood is like 70% clotted at this point. We have a timeline put out here by one of the officials finally. So they were just lying the whole time, if this is to be believed. So there was no altercation between him and the police entering the building. The police drove past him and then pulled up on and detained a teacher who they thought was the culprit. Supposedly. That's what they said. You know how that goes.
Yeah, they say a lot of things, don't they?
They do. So he crashes the truck and then waltzes into the school with a assault rifle.
Yeah, this was right after he didn't kill her, but shot his grandmother.
Yeah, in the face.
He flees from there in the truck, crashes it, and then I wonder, was he meaning to go to that school? Do we know that?
It's unclear.
Or did he just... Okay.
He shoots into the windows of the school a few times and then goes in the back door. It's unclear whether or not there's any altercation between him and the security guard, but he goes into the school, he enters the classroom, locks the doors from the inside, and this is what one of the officers previously had said the door was barricaded, which it wasn't. It was just locked from the inside. And there's 2 doors to this particular classroom. It was 2 classrooms connected. 11:33, he enters the room. 11:35, 2 minutes later, 3 Uvalde Police Department officers enter the school through the same door used by the gunman. 2 are grazed by gunfire. 4 more officers later enter the building. So there's 7 in the building at this point. 16 rounds are fired.
What is grazed? They weren't hit, right?
It says grazed. They were shot at, I assume.
They were shot at. Yeah, they were shot at. They weren't hit.
They just heard gunfire and freaked the fuck out.
Yeah, most likely. Because if they were hit, it would say 2 officers were hit. Grazed is that's not a term they're going to use. Yeah, they heard gunfire and they got scared, so they ran away.
So get this, 11:33, he enters the school. 11:35, the officers, all the 7 of them, enter the school. And that at this point, the door is already locked from the inside. They hear 16 rounds being popped off inside the classroom, standing outside of the door that's locked. 12:15, members of the Border Patrol arrive. Tactical unit arrive with shields, because I guess the police didn't have shields.
Gotta have shields.
I mean, they could have found a trash can lid or something. I don't know, man.
or here's something crazy. Put yourself on the line for children.
Right. They had vests, presumably, right?
Yeah, I imagine so. Yeah.
Is an AR-15 going to go through the vest? Most likely it would.
I mean, the vests that the military use are rated to be able to be hit by a .556 round.
So the most striking thing here is 11:30. There's 12 of them in the school. 12:15,
Yeah.
11:30. So 45 minutes later, Border Patrol arrive. So they're just chilling in the hallway for 45 minutes. Border Patrol arrive, and Border Patrol is the ones with the shields, and they're chilling, I guess, until from 12:15 to 12:50. Why is that the case?
Cowardice. I believe cowardice is the word you're looking for.
So 35 minutes after Border Patrol arrived, they finally bust in on the kid.
Thankfully, I think everyone seems to be coming to the same conclusion that the police are just. I wouldn't say this isn't even incompetence. This is I think people are they're really getting an eye opening on who they are as an institution. You know, they are not this organization that's out there to protect people. They're not going to put their lives on the line to help people. Certainly not children. Like, I'm talking with other people about this, and we all kind of come to the same conclusion that obviously, yeah, it's an unsafe scenario. I myself, I would like to think that I would have went in there, whether I'm going to get killed. And I think initially they were saying that the guy had a bulletproof vest on, which whatever, it doesn't matter. If you open fire on him, you get an AR with, police often have ARs, 30 round clips. You're going to sneak one past the vest. You start opening fire. He's not just going to stand there. He's going to go down. Even if the worst case scenario was true, go in there. Every bullet that he shoots at you is a bullet that's not going to be shot at the kid.
Right. The more they're distracting him from killing kids, the better. They could just bust the door in and just fuck with him for a while.
Fuck with him. Just go in there, start
Wait
shooting.
till he has to reload or something. You know what I mean?
And cops have this hero fantasy. Like, you want to legit be a hero? Go in and lose your life or get shot saving children. But they're all too scared. They're worthless cowards. And this is, it's awful. This is awful that this happened. But I think people are starting to realize how police forces across the country are just staffed with worthless cowards that
I don't know about that.
They don't live up to the image that they put out there for themselves.
There's got to be a few good ones in there, but for the most part,
not one, James, not one.
The type of person who is so insecure that they need to pack a gun around, man. See, now I'm going to piss off all the Second Amendment people.
Oh my goodness, I'm gonna piss them off.
It's almost like those two things go together, doesn't it? The power fantasy and the insecurity.
Well, yeah, sure. And you throw on top of that, like with the Second Amendment people, particularly, you have the hero fantasy. And,
well, that's what I have too. If I was there, dude, 12 of them stand in the office, I would have been like, all right, you pussies, I'm going in, barrel roll in there. You got a pistol. I mean, I'm pretty good with a pistol. I mean, surely they're highly trained physical specimens. They do this, they do drills on this, tuck and roll, zigzag, Z pattern, all that.
Yeah, I mean, your worst case scenario, this guy has body armor. Let's say he's not an 18-year-old kid. He's a trained gunman that ISIS sent over the border to attack our schools and
he's the jackal.
Strike terror. He's the jackal. He's trying to strike terror into the hearts of Americans everywhere. I still can't imagine I can't imagine a scenario where the answer isn't just to go in there. Just to go in there and completely blind, obviously. Tactically, it's not the smartest thing to do, but it's not some dude holed up in an abandoned house where you can chill out outside and wait for everything to get in place where you're gonna pursue him in the most safe manner possible. There's just kids in there being killed. Little kids too. I mean, they're like 9, 10, 11-year-olds.
I mean, there's 12 of them, 1 in 12. He's only going to kill one of you if he kills any of you. I mean, 1 in 12, that's pretty good odds. I mean, the problem is they're trained.
It's insanely good odds. They would have got him if they had just went in there. There might have been one of them that got killed. Maybe 1 or 2 of them got hit, but so fucking be it, man. I don't know. Like, are these people parents? Could you imagine? You've got kids now. I've got a daughter. Could you imagine any decent parent just sitting out there and not be willing to go in there and save a bunch of children? Young children at that.
The opposing argument is they want to come home to raise their kids, too. You got to think of that.
Don't be a fucking cop then.
Right.
That should be in the goddamn job description. You're putting your life on your line. You want everybody to suck your fucking dick because you think because you're out there serving the community and putting it all on the line. You actually have to do that. It's just not something you can just talk up all the time and not follow through on. And that's what it is. They're not following through with the job description, with what they want to make themselves out to be. And yeah.
That's not going to change anything. People are outraged now, but what is the right-wing media saying, I wonder?
Well, they're all reverting to the same old talking points about mental health. Candace Owen blamed it on trans people. I don't know if you caught that or not. Which makes sense, at first, the first time I thought about it, I was like, yeah, it probably is trans people.
the fake trans person they were claiming was this shooter. Like photos of some random trans person were circulating, I guess.
Yeah, and it really was a random trans person. It was some. It really was. It was like some. It started on 4chan. Like somebody on 4chan posted this picture of this random trans person in Georgia. That like I don't know if you've seen the photo, but it's like a photo they had taken of themselves. They're like smiling, leaning up against something like that,
Really?
leaning up against the wall or whatever.
That fooled every single Tim Pool fan. Anyway, I have some questions to pose to you here in light of this most recent mass shooting. I think 22 dead total here. Would the police have done more harm than good if they had went in? Would they have, shot each other and fallen all over themselves while the wacky music plays?
I see that as an absolute win all around. So they go in, they soak up some bullets from the attacker, and in their confusion, they shoot themselves. Hopefully they shoot the attacker too. And then everyone, that's a win-win-win.
Right.
So no, they would not have done more harm. There might have been a few kids that got shot by the police, but that's to be expected.
It's better than all of the kids.
I'm sure they would have found somebody's dog to shoot in the process too.
Are school shooters the same type of person as the bringing dead cats to school people who we have are acquainted with?
It is a person that first off wants attention, doesn't know how to get it. And I don't know. I think this would all probably fall into the incel category. This is just incels. You're trying to get attention. You don't know how to get attention from girls. So you either shoot up a school, which is apparently one of the, I don't know, he sent out a tweet just maybe that morning to some girl that he went to school with that like barely knew him, saying like, watch what I'm going to do this afternoon or watch what happens today or something like that. And,
it was some girl in Europe that he had met online, I think, if I remember.
Is that correctly. What it was? Okay. Yeah. I thought it was, I'd heard that it was some girl I went to school with, but or in the other case, you don't know how to talk to girls, so you bring a dead cat to school.
Well, I guess more specifically, we went to school with this.
Conversation starter is what it is.
Just the smell. That's going to start a conversation. So we went to school with this.
Your pussy smells bad.
We went to school. God. Went to school with somebody who did this. And I'm just wondering, so for example, Salvador Ramos, on a spectrum, on the scale of 1 to 10 here, 10 being Salvador Ramos, where would we place Bill, we'll call him, for the purposes of this episode?
I don't know. I think he was hovering right around a 7 or an 8.
Wow, really? That is, a dead animal.
I think he was. He might have been like one stub toe away from getting a hold of a gun and bringing it to school. I don't know if his parents had guns or not, so maybe that's what saved us all. I feel like they didn't. I could be wrong, but yeah, I feel like we were pretty close on that one. It was could have been a bad day any day. But actually, I think he went the opposite way after that. He took like a bottle of aspirin and missed school for a day or so. It was maybe like a month after the dead cat incident.
Yeah, it's not a very effective method if you just tell people right away what you did.
Yeah, that's called wanting attention.
Or needing help. Come on.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
being very uncharitable. Why do liberals want to talk about gun control instead of the underlying potential issues, if there are underlying issues to pinpoint here?
I think it's a tactics thing, and it seems to be like well, first off, liberals do talk about mental health, right? I think the pushback from liberals against the mental health narrative is because the mental health aspect is what the right talks about. And I would guess that, people like Rachel Maddow doesn't want to talk up and I don't know if she does or not, but Rachel Maddow doesn't want to spotlight the mental health aspect because of the political conflict between MSNBC and Fox News, whereas that's all Fox News is going to talk about is mental health. They don't care about mental health. They're not interested in doing anything about mental health.
Right.
But, it's this kind of easy, nebulous thing to attack when you feel like your guns are under attack.
So Fox News will say, well, we have these crazy people shooting up the schools. We need to kill them. We need to shoot them and kill them with our guns. Liberals are saying we need to do what? Are they saying we need universal mental health care? I guess some of them maybe. I don't know if Rachel Maddow is, though. It seems like the line from her, from that ilk, is like gun control, as opposed to actual material benefits for children.
Yeah, it seems to be it. Yeah, just gun control. I guess what the right, it's mental health and arm the teachers. That's kind of the two go-tos whenever something like this happens.
Well, mental health, but they don't want to do anything about it.
I think when you're looking at it from the right, mental health, like I guess the idea of actually providing people mental health, like free healthcare for everybody, universal healthcare it's so out of the question that mental health just becomes this nebulous thing that you can say that well, nobody really knows what to do about it, but that's what they need. They need to tell their parents to get better paying jobs so they can have
take them out back and shoot them.
Yeah, they get some mental health coverage and then take off time from work so they can drive them to a psychiatrist and hopefully they don't give them too much Adderall.
Would it be an authoritarian measure? Am I an authoritarian for advocating for mental health evaluations for students every 6 months?
I don't think so, but I think that would go just as well as the, if you remember the presidential fitness challenge in schools.
Yes. Yeah, of course.
Okay. Yeah. Where everybody you have to run and then you have to do the pegboard thing and climb up it. So I think you could do that. I think it's a great idea in line with the fitness challenge. You have like a mental health challenge.
You have to get your measles vaccine and you have to get your mental health evaluation.
Yeah. I imagine it would be as big of a failure as the presidential fitness challenge where you had a bunch of tubby kids like me that couldn't lift up their own body weight.
What are you saying? You saying every kid is so dumb that they would all fail the mental health evaluation?
Yes. I think that possible. It's not that they're all so dumb. I think that society is just so broken and kids are so full of Adderall that there's no helping them right now. Buy stockpile food right now. That's all what I'm saying. It's all falling apart.
Yeah, I don't know what to stockpile. I guess I need to get the Baker bucket because I don't know what lasts a long time. Because I don't see the apocalypse coming quickly all of a sudden. It's going to be a slow rollout over the next couple decades.
Yeah. My mom, she bought some of those, like, I don't know what you call them. They're like 5-gallon buckets, like disaster
Baker
buckets.
Jim Baker buckets. He was
okay.
He was the evangelist who was pushing these buckets of food because of the end times coming.
Yeah. So she got some of those
after he got out of jail for his escapades.
Well, I was looking through it, and I forget it was like $80 for a bucket, and I'm looking through it. I'm like, there's like $30 of food in here. Like, you go buy this bucket for $5, and then buy all the food for another 20 or something.
Yeah, there's like oatmeal cream pies and shit in there.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
Vienna sausages.
Not good stuff. No, it was like just all carbohydrates, like rice, powdered mashed potatoes,
bunch of cheap shit.
Yeah, beans, which is good. That's what you need.
They do stuff to them to make them last longer, though. See, that's what I'm curious about. If it's anything like MREs, they just make them taste like shit and they last forever.
Yeah.
So you linked an article here. Governor Abbott cuts mental health care services a month before the Uvalde shooting.
Yeah. This was last month. Abbott slashed $211 million from the state's department that oversees mental health programs.
Yeah, we don't want big government.
So this was, I don't know exactly what this was for specifically. It just goes to show this was kind of got brought up. I don't know if you've seen Beto O'Rourke, his reaction that he did where he kind of, I think he crashed Governor Abbott's press conference or whatever having to do with this Uvalde shooter. And this kind of got brought up in reference to that, hey, like you're here right now talking about mental health, but you're not doing anything to promote mental health. You're making it much, much harder for people to seek these services. I think it was like an NPR story, and they were talking about like the biggest mental health care provider in the state of Texas is like some jail. And then the second biggest mental health care provider was some other jail. Huh. And because
it's expensive as shit. Nobody can afford it.
And that's something else too, with psychiatrists. Like it's something like more than half of psychiatrists aren't covered by the Medicaid and Medicare programs, just because the payouts for them are so low that it's not profitable for a psychiatrist to do that. So, just mental health treatment in itself is just incredibly expensive. And
Medicaid doesn't really cover shit. I mean,
yeah, and anyway. It's just not reasonable. If you want people to be able to have access to these programs, like you're just going to have to fund it. You're going to have to put more money into these different Medicare, Medicaid programs to where they're paying these doctors enough to where it makes sense for them to take on these patients.
At the same time, though, you have to cut that off at a certain age. You can't have like 65 plus, I think, or maybe 70 plus. You can't have a slew of old people who are just lonely wanting to talk to all the psychiatrists, because they're going to start quitting. They're not going to enjoy themselves. It'd just be a disaster.
I hate old people too.
It'd just be a disaster. I mean, they don't have that long. Just let them Let them
I
simmer.
I think the same thing for just healthcare in general. Like after you hit 65, you did what you're going to do to your body. I'm not paying for it at this point. So
They're not doing a school shooting. Nope.
stay out of exactly. You're not doing a school shooting. I don't care about your cancer, grandma. Get out of the fucking doctor's office so I can try to get some pain pills.
They just put up a target, and if you get no shots inside the target, they don't give you shit. They just kick you out.
Yeah.
You want mental health care, you need to hit the bullseye, buddy.
Yeah.
Does our normal position on this, which is cops are overly aggressive, is that contradicted by this? Are we wrong about this whole police brutality thing?
Oh, definitely not. Cops are bullies, and bullies are only aggressive to the people that they can beat up. And when somebody when they're in a position that they can't control and they can't dominate, where the person has a fighting chance of shooting back, they're not really interested in going in and doing anything.
Now, this is like my wife. Like when she plays Mortal Kombat with my 8-year-old daughter, she just obliterates her. She gives her no chance.
Yeah.
Like if she can't do that, she's just not going to play. That's why she's such a bully.
Yeah, that's my daughter with me playing Super Smash Brothers. She just obliterates me. She's not interested in playing. If I were good, she wouldn't want to play against me. If I had a fighting chance, she wouldn't want to play against me. She just thinks it's funny to humiliate me at Super Smash Brothers.
If you beat her one time, she'd never play again.
Well, actually, I think what happened, she used to go easy on me. And then I would talk shit because I was beating her at her game. And then it just ended. She's like, oh, I'll play you for real now. And then I just got beat mercilessly. Then I started crying about how she was a bully. So I initially found this as I was perusing Reddit. This is from Briscoe Kane. He is a small town Texas politician. Gun fact: the police carry guns to protect themselves, not you. So initially, without context, I looked at this and I was like, yeah, man, that's a good point. I'm thinking he's speaking from my perspective and that he's using that as an attack against police. Like they're not out there to help you, buddy. They just want to help themselves. Then I noticed the date on there. This is from 2020, and I looked this fellow up, and no, he was using this apparently as an own against the Black Lives Matter people. That they're not out there to help you; they have to protect themselves. And
like after Rittenhouse, he probably posted this.
Something like yeah. I couldn't find the exact context, but he's a very conservative guy. I thought it was so interesting. It was such a good point. And when I read it, I was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And then to find out that he's coming at it from the opposite perspective that I interpreted it from.
They carry guns to protect white people's daughters from the black people, not to protect the black people from themselves.
Yeah.
That'd be ridiculous.
We just need to go out and erase the protect part on all their cars. So it's just serve the establishment, serve the.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We need to turn cops
it's
into.
Not serving
They need to feel like this the way the drive-through worker at fucking McDonald's feels like. They should just be there to serve us. You're right. We need to change this whole dynamic.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Get rid of the protect because it's serve and protect supposed to be. They don't protect, and right now they're serving somebody themselves. I imagine oftentimes, and I don't know whoever's pushing for a lot of these drug laws. They're certainly serving their interests, but we just keep the serve. But just change that power dynamic to where they're actually serving the people in the community that they are supposed to be policing.
That's a good idea. See, my whole argument the whole time has been the whole civil service thing, right? Let's create a civil service. When you turn 18, you have to do 2 years, say, of civil service. And you can do police if you're if there's some parameters that you meet that we determine as a society would be a good police force, Maybe, I don't know. I don't want to exclude women, but I would say, males, young 18-year-old males, you shoot bucks, you don't shoot does, right? We need the females to reproduce.
Sure.
To continue the Nordic bloodlines.
Exactly.
But just make them do civil service for a couple of years. Do the shitty jobs that nobody wants, like the police, the drive-through worker, whatever else, trash collection.
Yeah.
Cleaning up the jack-off stalls at the porn stores. Shit like
Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to do it. Jesus. Yeah, I don't know.
A few of them die trying to take down Uvalde. It's no big deal, right? They don't have kids yet. I can think of no better thing I could be doing at that age. What I was doing at the time certainly wasn't better than that.
Yeah. At least make them useful until make them useful to us until they get old enough to prove that they're useful to society in general.
They're really a danger to everyone around them and themselves at that age.
Definitely.
Which is a trait that police also have, so it makes sense. This was a story I read briefly. I didn't read too far into it though. ISIS plotting to kill Bush here.
An alleged ISIS-linked male in the U.S. was plotting to kill George W. Bush, going so far as to travel to Dallas in November to take video around the former president's home, and recruiting help from a team of compatriots he hoped to smuggle into the country over the Mexican border, according to an FBI search warrant application filed on March 23rd. The FBI said it uncovered the scheme through the work of 2 confidential informants and surveillance of the alleged plotter's account on the Meta-owned WhatsApp messaging platform. The alleged ISIS operative based out of Columbus, Ohio, said he wanted to assassinate Bush because he felt the former president was responsible for killing many Iraqis and breaking apart the country after the U.S. invaded the country in 2003, according to the warrant. Bush, a Republican who was in the news last week when he inadvertently referred to the U.S. invasion of Iraq in a speech about the Russian invasion of Ukraine, was president from 2001 to 2009. The case shows how federal investigators continue to monitor threats from ISIS, even as the group has been severely weakened by American intelligence and military operations in recent years. It also shows how the FBI, despite its claims of being prevented from investigating major crimes because of Meta and other tech providers' use of encryptions, has been able to work around WhatsApp security by using old-school policing with sourcing from informants and tracking the metadata they can get from the messaging company.
Yeah, so
that's from Forbes, by the way, just for a little context, audio listeners. That's a Forbes piece for point of view on that.
Yeah, so I initially, this was brought to my attention. It was a Kyle Kalinske clip, and he played it. He played the I guess kind of like the traditional take that Forbes would have taken, that the FBI
rooting out
foiled
terrorism.
Rooting out terrorism. They fooled this terror plot. This guy's trying to sneak ISIS in over the Mexican border.
Woo!
Oddly enough, and so I mean this happens a lot. We hear about these things every so often. We used to hear about them quite a bit more in the 2000s, maybe early 2010s.
2010s, yeah.
You'd hear about these things every so often, and I'm sure, I imagine there was maybe 1 or 2 that were legit, but for the most part, they were all just nonsense. These were all like these angry, disaffected, bringing dead cat to school type people that were pissed off. And they were venting on the internet, and then there would be some FBI agent or NSA agent that would find these people that are lurking in these chat rooms and these forums, and would slowly start coercing them into talking about or plotting more and more, violent acts. And these things would be funded. They would be given money by these people. This guy in particular, his trip to Dallas to tape to video Bush's house was paid for by the FBI.
Right.
These people are just egging them on, and they're finding these people, and they're just pushing them towards these acts that I think it's fair to say, certainly in a lot of cases, they wouldn't have come to that, on their own volition.
So he was an Iraqi with a pending asylum application?
Yeah, he come here in 2020.
Man. So he basically had there was no way he was going to be able to execute this plan outside of their direct support. It's insane. The weakest member of society, basically. Not even a citizen. Able to be deported even. They could have just deported him, but instead they put this fucking...
They put some, material support of terrorism, I believe, are the charges he's going to get. So this guy was not in communication with any terrorists. So in the clips, they say that he was, I don't know, they use this real squirrely language that he was allegedly in contact with members of ISIS. He was not in contact with members of ISIS. He was talking to FBI agents. Yeah, the co-conspirators, he had a couple people helping him in this plot. They were all FBI agents. He had never actually made any plans to smuggle anybody in. Yeah, it seems Shihab was just venting the wrong stuff on the wrong forum and got linked up with some counter-terrorism guys.
Well, 75% of people in those chat rooms are probably FBI agents, but you wouldn't know that as an Iraqi coming to America for the first time,
Yeah, he'd made all sorts of other claims, I guess, to the people to the FBI agents, saying that he drove around trucks loaded with explosives for ISIS while he was in Iraq. I don't know if there's, I don't think that there's any truth that he was actually doing that.
That sounds like some bullshit, like one of my sister's ex-husbands would say. Like nobody believes it, but Yeah,
I imagine he's an asylum seeker from Iraq, so he was probably escaping ISIS, and I don't know how strict the background checks are on something like that. I mean, obviously we still have a a lot of involvement in the Iraqi government, so I imagine we could pretty easily get our hands on any government documents they had or files pertaining to them. And we haven't. There's nothing to come up that he, helped ISIS in any way. So, and even if he had helped ISIS, so I was reading on the charge of material support. Okay, yeah, providing material support or resources to designated foreign terrorist organizations. So you could actually get him on that charge if he did that. If he were living here in the U.S. and he were seeking asylum, and you had evidence to show that he drove around trucks for ISIS, like you could get him on that charge anyway. So I doubt that it even happened in the first place.
Well, you could get him on something he did, but to get him on like basically thought crimes, like this whole thing, this is what they do, man. Given the track record of the FBI itself is far more likely to assassinate a U.S. president than some frickin' Iraqi immigrant.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seems like this could happen to all sorts of people. There are all sorts of disaffected, angry people out there, people that make up these fantasies like you were talking about themselves to make themselves seem cooler, to stand out because they don't.
There's a lot of dumbasses out there, man. There's a lot of
dumbasses that will say stupid shit.
Right, exactly.
But
would you like to buy a dead cat?
But yeah, I don't know. It just so you see this stuff coming up all the time. We had the Whitmer kidnapping plot from a few years back. Governor Whitmer of Michigan, and I guess in that case it was slightly more plausible that something was going to happen. I know that apparently a good percentage of the people that were in that group were all undercover FBI agents in the militia that was going to kidnap Governor Whitmer to bring about change in Michigan or whatever they were planning on doing.
Jeez, they had an FBI militia they formed?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, it was a Michigan militia, and it was like 40% of the members were all undercover guys. Jeez. But, at least in that case, at least in that case, you've got multiple people that are actually colluding on something. These guys did have access to guns. Like, this guy didn't have access to anything. He was just some dude from a foreign country. It's kind of crazy, but this is like early years of the war on terror level stuff. The FBI, they concoct plots like these all the time. I'm sure they get additional funding for things like this. They're trying to prove their relevance and their need to the American people.
Oh, they're very concerned about their image for sure.
Sure. I was kind of looking into it, trying to find some of the other stories. There's a story from The Intercept about this guy, Sammy Osmakak. I'm sure that's not correct, but yeah, he's this broke 25-year-old struggling with mental health. Again, we've got mental health coming up. Had no guns, no bomb-making materials or knowledge, no money, no friends, no ties to any actual terrorists. FBI agents convince him to make a martyrdom video and wear a fake suicide vest that they bought and drive a fake car bomb that they also bought for him to a Florida bar in this completely set up plot.
This is some Truman Show level shit here.
In the what do you call it? The deposition afterwards, the FBI agents describe how nervous and obviously scared he was when he was asked to put the suicide vest on. Like they found the weakest, most fragile member of society once again, and they preyed on him and they coerced and goaded him into doing something that he obviously did not want to do. Also in that deposition, the agents described him as a retarded fool that didn't have a pot to piss in.
Huh. I wonder if he was convicted. I'm sure he was.
Yeah, I believe he was. He was.
This stuff is so crazy. Like, how many people do they try this on, I wonder? They must try it on like 1,000 people, and they'll finally get one on the hook. Some dumb kid.
I think I don't know how many they would try it against. I think they're pretty good at targeting the right people. Like, you get on these forums, you listen around, and, you can pick up on stuff like that pretty quick. Somebody that's confused and doesn't have any direction, doesn't see any hope, doesn't see any light at the end of the tunnel, and is really impressionable. And then you can, talk people like that into just about anything.
They probably have an algorithm. Like Peter Thiel at Palantir probably has some algorithm to figure out exactly who these people are. And he sells each one to the FBI for like $1.5 million or something. Here's a target, buddy.
Oh, that's a good idea. I bet he does. I bet that's what's happening. I mean, yeah, when I initially saw that headline that man was trying to sneak ISIS members over the border to kill George W. Bush, it was like my jaw dropped. I was like, what? That's crazy. Holy shit. This This type of stuff still happening? I thought ISIS was almost gone.
I wonder if Secret Service is pissed that they didn't get the bust.
I'm sure.
FBI is trying to make them look bad.
Yeah, they'll be making something up here pretty soon to steal their thunder back. But yeah, so this is so widespread that Columbia Law School, the Human Rights Institute, they wrote a whole paper about this, kind of criticizing the U.S. law enforcement agencies. So in the paper, they detailed 27 cases.
Illusion of justice.
So yeah, if you go down to page 4, they raise the following patterns that raise serious human rights concerns. Discriminatory investigations, often targeting particularly vulnerable individuals. Use of overly broad material support charges, punishing behavior that did not demonstrate intent to support terrorism. Prosecutorial tactics that violate fair trial rights, such as introducing prejudicial evidence, including evidence obtained by coercion. Harsh and abusive confinement, prolonged solitary confinement, excessive lengthening of sentences. It's a whole sick system. But yeah, you go down to the next one. They're known to target people with mental or intellectual disabilities and stings, and they kind of document specific cases, evidence obtained by coercion. I don't know. It's a weird, messed up system that.
Targeting people with mental or intellectual disabilities in stings. Rezwan Ferdows. Although an FBI agent even told Ferdows' father his son obviously had mental health problems, the FBI targeted him for a sting operation, sending an informant into Ferdows' mosque. Together, the FBI, with
it gets worse.
informant and Ferdows, devised a plan to attack the Pentagon and the U.S. Capitol, with the FBI providing fake weaponry and funding Ferdows' travel. He was mentally and physically deteriorating as the fake plot unfolded, suffering weight loss so severe his cheekbones protruded, loss of bladder control that left him wearing diapers, and depression and seizures so bad that his father quit his job to care for Ferdows. He was eventually sentenced on material support for terrorism and explosives charges to 17 years in prison with an additional 10 years of supervised release. Jesus Christ.
Well, his dad doesn't have to take care of him anymore.
They can just put mentally handicapped people in prison for decades for some shit that they told them to do, dude. That's crazy.
It is.
What is the point?
Well, if you don't read into it, it makes for a hell of a headline.
You're right, because people just read the headline, yeah. In today's day and age, you can do that type of shit.
Or you listen to Forbes describe it, and you don't catch the words like alleged and the fine print at the end where he wasn't actually talking to any terrorists. He didn't actually have any bombs. He wasn't actually going to do anything. We just got him to say some shit and videotape the ex-president's house.
The FBI and the CIA, man, they have such a bad track record. The fact that they're still around is just due to their historical power. They have so much power that it's going to be impossible to get rid of them.
There's something really perverse about the incentive structure for, I guess, kind of prosecutors on every level. And that, they're incentivized to get as many convictions as they possibly can. Not really to question whether this person needs a conviction or not. They get the police to go out and just bring them people with as much evidence as we can to get a conviction on this person. And that's what happens. I mean, that happens at every level on just about every crime.
Well, this isn't the police. This is like, we have the federal marshals. The fucking FBI is out there like creating cases out of thin air, basically.
Well, no, absolutely. Yeah. Police on every level, these are federal prosecutors and federal police forces.
Yeah.
Or it happens on the municipal level with the district attorney and the local cops.
You're definitely right.
Systemic.
There's some organizations are just more corrupt than others, I think, though, for sure. Obviously. I mean, the CIA has, I probably shouldn't say that on air.
Tell us about the CIA some more, James.
So we talked a little bit about the Vice pieces last week, but we didn't cover the sexual assault allegations from these various officers and accusations of widespread sexual misconduct going on in the LMPD. And some of these characters are recurring because, they go hard, man. That's one thing about the police. They go hard.
They definitely do.
Unless they might be in physical danger, in which case they chill in the hallway for 45 minutes waiting for the guys with the shields.
So incidentally, like as I was looking over what we were going to talk about this week and kind of a recurring theme, I think, just let me show you this real quick. I'm thinking maybe a new what do you call it? Mascot for the podcast. So this is Saint Ice Cube from the group NWA, and they had their famous song "Fuck the Police."
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I've really been getting into that vibe a lot lately, and it seems to be a recurring theme. So petition, maybe he could be a mascot for the podcast. We'll all become Cubites.
I'm not an Ice Cube scholar, but I do enjoy his work, I have to say. So my question is, the problem the police had in Uvalde, they didn't have any shields. They had all the guns in the world, but it didn't do them a fucking bit of good. Why wouldn't they have shields before they had guns? Like, shields should be the first thing you have. Wouldn't you think?
That's a good point. I mean, most interactions where somebody's going to be violent, it seems like it's just going to be like some sort of physical altercation. Somebody tries to throw a beer bottle at you or throw a punch at you, and you just
tower shield
up with the shield. Tower shield.
Like, I just imagine, like, you know,
unless they have a red weapon, then 2 hits with a red weapon destroys the tower shield.
I'm just imagining like a scene from Braveheart, and I'm standing there, and the enemy hordes are the English hordes are approaching. And what would I rather have, a crossbow or a tower shield? I'd rather have the tower shield, man, because you know they're going to be firing arrows, swinging swords at you.
Well, yeah. I mean, the English were famous for their longbows. You know,
right.
You're not going to stop a longbow with a broadsword.
Definitely not. You'd have to get very
lucky.
You
need a shield. You have to be very lucky.
Very fast.
Have to be, which I am, but
of course. I mean, I could do it, but
years of training.
So the first officer we're going to discuss here is Officer Brian Bailey.
Clearing Bailey. 3 years after that, another woman, who we'll call Jane Doe, and who'd worked for Bailey as an informant, came forward with an even more serious allegation.
I got arrested.
Okay.
When I got out, he showed up and told me I owed him.
Owed him what?
Pretty much that's what he wanted, was his dick sucked. He'd call me up or text me and say, you know you owe me.
At the time, investigators made it clear that they weren't going to check Bailey's phones just on her word.
Well, I have to have some reason to get the messages. Like, I have to have some reason or some reasonable grounds to believe that.
I mean, I'm telling you, like a couple different times I had oral sex with him. I saved the clothes.
Jane Doe had DNA evidence, which forced LMPD's hand.
This is Sergeant Omar Lee, Little Metro Police Public Integrity Unit. Today's date is May the 20th of 2020. This will be a recorded statement with Officer Brian Bailey.
It took 3 months for LMPD to bring in Officer Bailey for an interview. It was the first time he'd ever been asked any questions about sexual misconduct in an official setting.
Have you ever asked for any kind of nude pictures of her or anything like that?
Don't believe so, no.
We've been
Don't believe so.
together for 5 years, or at least. I mean, there's nothing.
Okay, and none of that time had ever crossed over into the.
No, we never went out on a date night. She's a 55-year-old woman.
That's the allegation, so that's why I have to ask that question.
I understand.
I hate to put you in that situation if it's not true, but that is the allegation, and she's saying that you were forcing her to perform oral sex in exchange for getting out of trouble. So I have to ask you straight up, and you're saying no, that's never occurred.
I mean, I'm scared. Obviously, I don't know. No.
And she had a shirt with semen on it that she says is yours. So she has saved that shirt for quite some time. We've sent that to the lab. Lab comes back that it is bodily fluids. So I have a search warrant for your DNA today.
Yeah, I guess I need to ask for an attorney at this point.
Okay.
This was not his first allegation either. And it took him 3 months to do this interview after this allegation came forward, where the victim actually had bodily fluids.
It's almost as if they don't take these things seriously, or they don't want to investigate officers.
Let me just say, as someone who's been incarcerated many times, this is a very chill interview by the police. Like, this is not very typical.
Yeah. And also, as somebody that's also been interrogated by the police, I know that look of, oh, fuck, when they ask a question about something you thought they didn't know about. Or your face, you just gotta stay calm. Gotta keep my face straight. Don't let them onto anything I'm thinking right now. I don't recall anything like that happening.
Yeah, definitely some clues there, right?
Yeah,
very deceptive. The investigator here was leading him on by giving him like the right answer as opposed to the wrong answer. Normally they would be like, "So explain to me why you didn't make this woman suck your dick."
Oh yeah, they would be lying, pulling out every stop. I mean, these people, they know how to coerce. They know how to get you to say something. This is what we just talked about. They know how to get you to say something. And in any other scenario, if it's me up there, they're going to try to get me to say something whether I did it or not. And with him, they're just
Your buddy's
trying to
already
get him
told
out of
us.
it.
Your buddy down the hallway's already told us that you did it.
Yeah.
We just need you to confirm.
Yeah, it's going to be easier on you. Just go ahead and say, because we already know you did. So
Yeah,
it's not even a question at this point.
We've got the DNA results back already.
We just want to know, how many tablespoons of semen did you produce? What was the consistency?
This poor woman, man, this 54-year-old woman reported this to a third officer, Officer Stafford, who filed a complaint on her behalf with the PIU, which is their internal affairs department, who did nothing. 15 months after the interview with the victim, they finally seized Bailey's phone. According to Vice, in this particular piece here, the police trading sexual favors for freedom is called the deal. They have a name for it in the department, much like, what do they call it when you put a dope on them? Dropping dope? They have dropping dope, and they have the deal. So you do the dropping dope to get the deal, to get the terms to the deal. Yeah. You know what those are.
Find some poor woman on probation, throw some heroin in her lap, and then tell her you can get her out of it if she gives you a blowjob.
And the investigating, like the PIU here, they don't care because you're just a fucking drug addict. You should be behind bars. So really, you're just doing your service to the community.
And you use drugs a few times, so anything you say is most likely going to be a lie.
Definitely.
You're just the scum of society.
All drug users are just liars. We know that.
Just liars. She was probably having people suck her dick.
Next up, Officer Pablo Cano.
Tell me what happened.
I did. I told you for 3 hours the other day. And again today. I mean, I had no intention of inviting him in. I had no intention of having sex with him. He fucking forced himself on me.
And then he doesn't even call you.
I don't fucking care.
At that point, I definitely got the sense that nothing may happen, that this might just go nowhere.
How do I get him?
I don't know. That's why you're paid the big bucks, I guess. I don't know. Do your magic. I don't know. How do you get anyone
with proof
to confess a crime? What proof do I have except that I lived through it? I mean, if you're telling me it's not enough, then fucking let him go out and rape a bunch of other people and you'll deal with it later.
Richards filed a lawsuit against the city. After her allegations went public, 8 more women came forward to say that Cano had raped them too.
So Officer Cano, he was a serial rapist who was outed in 2017 finally. That was the first woman who come forward that was being interviewed here. And it sounded to me like that they were basically telling her, look, you don't have any proof. There's nothing you can do. They weren't on her side.
Yeah, it was kind of the recurring theme to all these is that they were not like advocates for the victim. They were trying to stonewall any action against their fellow officers. I don't know what the way around that is.
Like 90% of people tell on themselves, and that's how they get convicted. Like they could have just interviewed him and gave him some tough questions. They didn't even do that. Yeah, the police department knew he was a rapist. He basically admitted it. They asked this female officer. She actually testified and said that, yeah, everybody in the department knew.
Yeah, that was kind of the crazy part where, what was it, a new night shift manager come in and asked who the problem officer was, and everybody kind of laughed and pointed at him, and he raised his hand and said, yep, I'm the sexual deviant and serial rapist.
Cano was accused by 5 women of forcing them to have sex.
The officer was extended a professional courtesy, even as a criminal defendant, where he was able to go to court once and have everything handled. In other words, he could go, be arraigned, enter his plea, and be sentenced all in one court appearance, so as not to humiliate the officer from the aggravation of having to go to court multiple times.
Don't want to humiliate him.
That was awful nice of him.
Yeah.
I've never had that. Never done that for me.
Yeah, well, they don't want to be humiliated, James. You wouldn't want to humiliate them, would you?
No, we need to protect the integrity of our convicted officers.
Yeah, of the serial rapist employed by the city.
We were willing to testify, and we wanted him to do a lot of time.
Instead, the felony rape charges were amended down to 5 counts of sexual misconduct, all misdemeanors. Cano was sentenced to 5 years in prison, with the chance of parole even sooner.
Everything's taken away when you're raped.
It's taken away when you report, and they took it away in court.
The prosecutor on the case told Vice News that there wasn't enough evidence to prove the more serious sexual assault charges beyond a reasonable doubt. For the past year, the Department of Justice has been investigating potential civil rights abuses at LMPD, including the department's handling of complaints and internal investigations. We reached out to the PIU investigators seen in this piece, and none of them responded. In Bailey's case, the survivors are still waiting for criminal charges. LMPD investigators concluded that his actions did reach the level of crimes, but as they noted in their own report, by the time the criminal investigation was concluded, the statute of limitations had long passed.
Oh,
the
man.
Commonwealth Attorney's Office says it's still considering charges. Prosecutors could charge him with forcible sodomy, which is a felony, but that seems unlikely given the department and city's track record.
Well, to be fair to the department, it would make them look bad if they started convicting their own officers. Can't have that.
The public at large might lose a little bit of faith in the integrity of the department.
They might question the legitimacy of these task forces or even the police department overall.
Yeah,
they might
definitely
determine that local community patrols would be more useful.
And in that comes the downfall of society. Louisville itself crumbles.
Definitely.
If the people see who's actually on the payroll of the city, where your taxes are going.
I don't understand how these guys are so horny, man. Jesus Christ. Freaking
yeah.
Bailey.
So, does something like that develop, or is it a certain class of person that's attracted to that kind of job, the power? I mean, that's really, I think, what it is in a lot of these cases. It's just it's a fetishize, like they fetishize the idea of having power over people, whether it's, getting to walk around with a gun and shoot at people or lock people up and bring them to jail, or
maybe that's it. Maybe it is a fetish. Maybe like police fetishism is a thing that's not really known or understood, but these guys, that's what they're into. Like, what was this one officer, Kano, when he did all these rapes, he raped 8 women and got 5 misdemeanors for it.
Yeah.
Armed rape, right? He had a pistol, and he's an officer.
On duty. He was on duty.
They were telling the methodology, like he would come to their home. He had met them previously. He would come to their home and just kind of barge in and then just rape them wearing his uniform and his gun and everything. He would just pull his pants down a little bit.
There's no more disgusting human being alive than this guy. Yeah, I watch this. I hate watching shit like this.
I know, man.
And it's just, it's so infuriating. I don't like the police as is, but then you start adding this. If they're fucking with somebody like me, whatever. It's messed up, but I don't have the visceral, emotional reaction as like when you hear about stuff like this, just going to some poor woman's house and doing something like that. It's horrible. It's disgusting.
Then when it gets reported, they treat the victims like fucking liars,
Yeah.
All right, next up, Brett Hankinson. Here's a throwback. We definitely discussed him last week. We also discussed him during the Breonna Taylor stuff.
Confidential informant. Hankinson wrote her citation, but didn't turn it in. Instead, he held on to it, in case she failed to hold up her end of the deal.
I mean, in a way, I almost feel like I had to be, nice to him or flirt with him in a way, because I feel like if I completely just disregarded him right off the bat, that he would just turn my ticket in.
What sort of stuff would Hankinson say to you over the phone?
Like how he thought I was just sexy, and I felt like he almost thought I would want to have you want to hook up with an officer, like this was like a prize for me to hook up with somebody like him. He was very aggressive and pushy toward me. I didn't like that at all.
How pushy did he get during these interactions?
I mean, the last interaction we had, I met him at this warehouse, which I don't really like talking about. It makes me cry, but he was just really terrible to me.
Almost a month after meeting McKinney, Hankinson filed the charges he'd been sitting on. Then, 2 months later, he called McKinney's parole officer to ask why her probation hadn't been revoked.
So
man.
Yeah, just heartbreaking, man. I was just gonna say, the idea that all these women are lying about this, it's so disgusting, man. Who is gonna lie about some shit like that?
I don't know. It's crazy. The idea that he would write out the citation and then hold on to it.
Yeah.
Just not turn it in. That's weird in and of itself.
That's creepy as fuck. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I think that happens a lot.
Oh, I'm sure it does, but I'm just wondering from the prosecutor's side, like, hey, I just got this citation that you found somebody that had some drugs on them like 3 months ago, and you didn't arrest them, and I'm just now getting this. What did it get lost in your floorboard?
You're assuming that
it's a younger woman.
You're assuming that the prosecutor and the cop aren't like hanging out at the bar after work and
that the
trading
prosecutors give a
favors
shit.
and giving each other hand jobs and shit. So Hankinson turns her in anyway, and then calls her probation officer to get her probation revoked. And their probation, I guess she tells the probation officer what happened, why he called her to revoke her, and the probation officer reports it to the PIU, the Internal Affairs Department. And of course, they didn't do shit about it. Eventually, she did do an interview with them.
We would just ask you something point blank. Are you manipulating both these officers in order to get your charges dismissed or not turned in?
It was terrible. He kind of like belittled me in a way. And some of it, he acted like I was making it too. So I was just so against Brett. If I had sex with the other cop, if that's why I wasn't telling on him.
You're not the special one if these guys are doing this stuff. I don't know. But if you think you're the special one, you better get over it now. Because I can guarantee you what will happen if we go over and talk to both of them. They throw you under the bus so fast and so hard, your head will be spinning.
That's exactly what Hankinson did when investigators brought him in for an interview 6 months later.
Instantly, I started thinking that, like, she's going to want to try to just get her shit dismissed by fucking me or whatever. And I was like, I don't know if I feel comfortable using her as a CI. Well, Sarge's like, dude, you know as well as I do, these CIs are fucking dime a dozen. They're like, we use them and abuse them anyway, and get what we can out of them. He said, I don't think it's worth getting caught in a trick bag or whatever for you to use this girl because obviously she's bad news.
Investigators repeatedly took Hankinson at his word, even when his account was directly contradicted by material evidence.
You just see how they talk about these people here, the women in particular. It's pretty gross, yeah. He had 2 phones, and he was receiving texts on his work phone only, and then he would send non-suspicious texts to her with his work phone, but then he had his personal phone where he would send her lewd photos, but they never asked for that phone. They never...
Yeah, I was...
they never even asked for it. It's not like they asked and he said no. They never even asked for it.
Yeah, I was talking with my girlfriend. We watched this earlier, and I was saying, if ever there were a case for revenge porn to be justified, it would be this. Just release all those photos, throw that pig's dick up on Facebook so his grandma can see it.
See, you're right. She should have had, what's the app that you told me about last week?
Mobile Justice.
She should have had Mobile Justice, yeah.
Should have had Mobile Justice. That way you could keep this stuff recorded. Yeah, just the general disdain that they talk about people in their community, how they speak about people in the community, the CIs. I mean, what is a CI? I don't particularly like them. It's just somebody that got busted with some drugs at some point, and it had to have been a low-level offense. Otherwise, they would prosecute them. And they just view those people as just scum. Just use them and abuse them and use them up and put them in dangerous situations. They're still people. They're still American citizens.
Even confidential informants shouldn't be raped by the police.
Even it's hard for me to say that, but yeah. Even confidential informants should be treated with a degree of respect.
Outside of the warehouse?
I mean, I was kind of told Internal Affairs a
At
little
least
bit.
by the
I told
police.
him that.
At least by the police,
He asked me
yes.
to meet him there. He asked me to meet him one night in Taylorsville at a warehouse. And I did. I met him there. And he was in a truck. And he pretty much tried to fuck me. And they kind of just disregarded what I had to say and kind of like blew me off and didn't believe me. Or I'm not sure if they didn't believe me or they just didn't care.
Would you be shocked to learn that she told us that she actually met you at a warehouse while you were off duty?
No.
That wouldn't shock you?
Like I was working off duty?
No, she said she come out, y'all were having a conversation, and she met you out at a warehouse in Taylorsville near where you lived.
No, that's not true. And yes, that would say it was a lie. I don't believe that. Well, I mean, I believe that she told you that, but I've never met her outside of work, period, ever, one time. I don't know where there's any warehouses. Even I don't go into except to I might go run in to get a gallon of milk or something like that. I wouldn't be familiar with a warehouse to even meet at.
I don't even know what a warehouse is. What's a warehouse?
Never heard of a warehouse.
I don't even drive. I don't even own a vehicle. What are you
I don't
talking
even live
about?
in this.
It's so obvious. These guys are all full of shit, and they're just telling on themselves immediately. Like, you think they would be better at being on the other end of these police interviews, given the fact that they conduct them.
One would think. These are our best and brightest, James.
I mean, even the
Don't
shitty,
denigrate them.
even the shitty like clues I was looking for on your interrogation. I mean, even I could tell these guys are full of shit, man. Surely the detective at the PIU interviewing him has to know that they're lying.
Yeah, well, he probably throws the CI the PIU's way every once in a while.
No, we didn't talk about
share the wealth.
We didn't talk about this last week, but Hankinson is also integral in the successful raid on Breonna Taylor's apartment. He was doing the very important job of shooting randomly through the fucking side windows into neighboring apartments. This is relevant here, so I figured we would cover it since we're talking about Hankinson. His connection to the Breonna Taylor raid, the missing time. Luke Fahn was the head of this unit. Cole Gibson and Brett Hankinson all gave very different versions. So all three of these people, when interviewed, gave different versions of where they were after the raid. Their stories varying by as much as 3 hours. They had basically 3 hours between different versions of the stories they were telling when interviewed after the fact. Cole Gibson and Brett Hankinson's stories were both proven to be lies by Vice News investigation for these two videos that they put out this week.
Hankinson, who was seen walking in and out of the crime scene, told investigators that he went directly to the hospital after leaving the scene. But cell phone records obtained by Vice News and analyzed by a telecommunications expert suggest he took an unusual detour. After initially heading northeast along the road to the hospital, his phone pinged a tower corresponding to a location well south of the route. The trip took him approximately 30 minutes, almost twice as long as it should have. Another officer noted a similar delay on his way from the hospital to PIU.
After I spoke to Detective Hankinson, I left Uvalde and went to our public integrity unit.
Was Detective Hankinson there by that time?
No.
Very suspicious.
No.
How'd they get his phone? Can you just get people's phone records? Or did someone...
That's what I was wondering. Yeah, their cell phone records.
Someone leak them to
towers they've been.
Vice?
I don't know. They said they obtained them. I don't know if it was. Yeah, curious.
Interesting.
During the period in which he was unaccounted for, Hankinson exchanged multiple text messages with Detective Mike Kuzma, who worked for the nearby Shively Police Department. Kuzma played a small role in the investigation leading up to the raid, but in interviews with investigators, claimed to have no further knowledge or involvement. Kuzma's phone records, which were also obtained by Vice News, show that he was in Louisville right around the time the two were exchanging messages, even though he wasn't working and lives half an hour away.
We don't know exactly what transpired.
Yeah, what was going on there, man? A Shively police officer he's texting with during this missing time, he meets up with Kuzma. What do you think happened here? Do you think they got the 14 grand and split it, I guess?
So when we were going over the Breonna Taylor, there was something in that first podcast we did about the Breonna Taylor raid where they were getting information through the Shively Police Department. I think it had to do with the mail records. They were having to go through Shively.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It didn't really go much into it, but yeah, they might have had a guy in the Shively department that was
that Kuzma,
feeding
that was
them
probably
information.
Right.
You got to go split the money with them.
You think they had to split that? Hankinson had to give Kuzma his share of it?
Maybe. I don't know.
Interesting. That could be. I hadn't considered that. I was thinking maybe he gave the.
Yeah. He's feeding them certain bits of information, and everybody in on the lick has to get their share of the cash, or maybe they got to get it out of the hands of the officers involved for the time being, so they get somebody that was tangentially involved on the outside to hold on to the money for a few months before they distribute it.
That was my first thought, but I don't know if he wouldn't give somebody else the money, another officer the money to hold, though. That seems less likely than your initial thought, which was that Kuzma played some important role in the bust and therefore had to be compensated to keep quiet about it. Or he knew, you know what I mean? Pay all the parties involved so they're all part of the conspiracy.
Just like the mafia. You got to pay off the man that gives you the tip.
Crooked shit. It could just be that he took a right and traveled down there for 30 minutes to rape somebody. It could have been that. Could have been
There's
no
always
money.
that.
That's all I had planned for this week, Tony.
That sounds good.
All right, man.
We've definitely done our job to tear down the edifices of power in our local community. You know, we just got to bring the whole police system down. And I think we've accomplished that tonight. I expect to wake up tomorrow and call 911 and no one will answer.
That'll be.
It'll bring it. I'll be happy. I'll be happy.
All right, man. It's been good talking to you.
Yep. We'll see you next week, buddy. Peace.
Have a good one.
Later.